The control list function will allow us to expose a list of elements for the trio operator. And not only that, but you can also use this with Microsoft Excel to create a worksheet and update it from that as well. So to begin, we're going to walk through an example of how to set this up. So to start, I'm going to drag a group and drag it down into the scene tree. And then I'm going to go back into my built-ins here, and we're just going to create some type of backplates or a grid like. So I'm going to use a rectangle here. I'm just going to go into the rectangle editor and quickly change my color here to something we can see. So I'm just going to make it a blue color, and I'm just going to drag each individual color down onto the next one. Now we can just kind of set our width here or however we want. So let's go 50, and maybe we'll just leave this one at 100. Now I'm going to copy this rectangle 3 more times so that we have 4 in total. Now I'm just going to distribute these out, and a quick way that we can do that is to use this grid arrange found in the arrange folder. So I'm going to take this grid arrange, drag it onto our top group here, and let's say we want our number of columns to be 4, and I'm just going to use this column offset to spread out our columns. And once it's set, I'm just going to rearrange this and move it back into spot here. Now once we're done with this grid arrange, I can take this and drag it to the trash can. We're all finished with that. And if we want to rename these, we can. So I'm just going to rename this one row 1 on the top main group. And we can rename these as well. So if you want to quickly rename it, we can use this Corena here to rename it. I'll drag this onto our top row here. And let's say we want to name all the containers underneath it row, and we'll just put the starting index at 1. I'll hit execute, and now it renames each one of these rows. We're done with the Corena, so I'm going to drag that to the trash. Next thing we want to do is add some text to it. So I'm going to go back into the server, into my font folder, and drag a text or a font here down as subcontainer of my rectangle. I'm going to click on it, and I'm just going to reposition this. Let's change our text here to some type of number. So I'm just going to type in a number, and now we'll position this right over our rectangle. So I'm going to copy this font or text container down as a subcontainer of our second rectangle, and the same thing for our third rectangle, and the same again for our fourth rectangle. Now I need to set up a control text for this, so I'm going to go back into the built-ins, into the control folder, and grab our control text. I'm going to take our control text and put it onto our first font container. You can see when we do that, it added this object automatically. So I'm going to go into my text control, and I want to make this field identifier 1A. Now I need to add a control text for each one of these, so I can take it from the folder here and drag it down onto it, and we're going to make this one 1B, and I'm just going to leave all the settings as is. I also need to add it to row 3 and 4, so I can just take this and copy it by dragging it down onto the next font container. I'm going to make this text control field identifier 1C, and then we'll do it once more for our last one. I'm going to make this field identifier 1D. Now I'm just going to close up this topmost container here, and we're going to copy this 4 more times so that we have 5 containers in total. So I'm going to hold down Control and just copy this. And now that we have 5 containers, I want to regroup these. So I'm going to throw these in a group as well. Now I want to arrange these out. So again, I'm going to use this grid arrange and drag this down onto the topmost group. And this time, instead of columns, we want to go rows, and we have 5 of them. So I'm going to type in number of rows, 5, and row offset. I'm just going to advance my variable here until everything is spread out. Now that we're done with this grid arrange, I can drag this to the trash, and I'm just going to come in and reposition our grid here. So again, if you want to rename these, you can. So I'm just going to quickly double click on the container name here and type in a new name. We'll make this one row 2. I'll hit the down arrow. We'll make this one row 3. I'll hit the down arrow again, make this one row 4, and I'll hit the down arrow, make this one row 5. Now what I want to do is actually group this main group one more time. So I'm going to throw this into another group, and this group here is actually going to be our control list. So I'm just going to rename this here to control list just so we know what this is. And this topmost group is going to be our main group. So I'm just going to rename this main. Now I want to go back into my control folder, and I'm going to drag this control list down onto my control list group here. And when I do that, you can see again, it adds this object control. Within the control list editor, we have a field identifier. We could potentially leave it at 1, but Since all of our text things were at 1, I'm just going to name this a variable that I know will not interfere. So quickly just named it 10. And we can change the description if we want. And I'm just going to come down and turn this exposed number of rows off. So I'm going to hit save on the scene, and we're going to go into Trio and test this out. So once in Trio, I need to import this scene. So I'm going to come to this drop down here and say import scenes. I'm going to navigate to where our folder was, or where we saved the scene. Then we're just going to click on it and drag this over into our scene window. Now once it's in the scene window, when I double click on the scene itself, you can see here in the upper right that we have this little matrix grid or list. So we could come in here and change everything if we needed to. So this grid is easily laid out, and you can easily change it by clicking on it and just coming in and typing in a new number. Now, even though we set up numbers, we don't just need to use numbers. We could type in letters or anything like that. We didn't do too much as far as setting the maximum width or anything for these texts. You can always go back and do that later. Now, what's more is that you can actually link this to a database. So you can use a SQL, or in our case, we're going to use an Excel file to link this. So what I'm going to do is open up Excel, and we're just going to start filling out some variables here. Now in an Excel sheet, you may have things like a title or something that you may want to put up here. So I'm just going to come in and start filling in numbers here quickly. So we'll make this one row here several numbers. We'll do this one another number. And again, this row another number. Okay, so once I have my numbers or my chart filled in here in Excel, I need to save this Excel sheet. And when you're working with Excel, it may be necessary to actually save it as an older Excel. So I'm going to do this save as Excel 97 2003. So I'm going to click on save, and I'm just going to navigate to a place where I want to save it. So I'll just save it in this folder, and we'll call it something like control list. And I'm just going to hit save. Now our Excel sheet is saved. So what I need to do is actually link this Excel sheet to our database or our Trio scene. Now within Trio, we have this option here for show settings. So I'm going to click on this show settings, and I'm just going to come into this little thing called databases here. You get this little icon. So I'm going to click on this, and we need to add a database. So to do this, we're going to click on this little cylinder which says add database. I'm just going to give it some type of name, and we'll just call it control list. Below this, it says the connection string. We could navigate to a folder, or here there's a little Excel icon. So I'm just going to click on this, and we're going to go into our folder where we saved our Excel sheet. So I'm just going to double click it. Here you see the Excel sheet, and now it links it to it. We have a lookup column which we can change here. We are using sheet 1 in that Excel sheet, so I'm just going to leave it as is and hit OK. Now I'm going to hit OK on this, and I'm also going to hit OK on this to close it out, our show settings. Now if we come over here into our editor, we still didn't notice any change. We still have to do one more step to link this. So we get this little database link button here. I'm going to click on this, and this is where we're actually going to link our database. So we have a little checkbox here. It says link database. I'm going to turn this on. It says database connection. I'm going to use this little drop down here and click on this. And here you can see when we do that, it actually automatically updated our grid here with the numbers that we filled out in our Excel sheet. If you needed to go back manually and still change these, you still have this option. So you can come in here and change it with any number that you need to. Or if you need to go back and use this into Excel, what you would want to do is change any number within Excel, type it in there, and you hit save, and then you come back into Trio. And once you're in your database, if you just refresh, it will update those numbers right in the scene.